Kyle here from All Media Reviews, here to do another Kevin Gilbert Thud track. This one is the fifth track on the album, so these videos are going. This is the fifth video. There'll be 10, so there'll be 5 more after this, plus a few extras, so more than 5. But the song T for One. I like to talk about how many versions there are, and I'm finding that there's probably, some of them there's more than others, but on average, there's about 4 or 5 versions, including the standard version. So there's the standard version, which is, and I'll talk about the song in general just in a minute. Yeah, okay. 5 minutes and 47 seconds. It's on the standard Thud. Then there's, of course, the 20th anniversary. That's what this series is largely about, is to just go over the 20th anniversary, which I should have done years ago. I did a review of it, but more thoroughly. There's 2 versions, I believe, There's the demo mix number 1, T for One, and then there's the sax mix. That's 5:47, so it's identical length to the sax mix. The demo mix number 1 is 5:53. And then, of course, there was the most recent version off of, there isn't one on here. There's Tears of Audrey, but, Thud Alternate version. Right, the alt bass mix, yes. Yeah, so, anyway, and that one, I had the lengths down here. Alt bass mix, because that was the first one I listened to. There it is, 5:52. That one's, it's really not that different, but, so it's not dramatically different in terms of length, So my first, just to talk about T for One, the song itself, it's a ballad. Obviously, you think about Thud, though, and a lot of the songs aren't very highly energetic. They have moments of energy, but it's a ballad. It's a slower piece. And I've always liked it, but I've always kind of, that and Tears of Audrey I've looked at, and then I guess you could say Song for a Dead Friend, being the kind of token ballads. Joytown you could say is a ballad in some ways, too. It's slower, but it's more of a pure ballad. T for One is, and Tears of Audrey, those 2 especially. And then, I think of Thud in some ways as being slower, more organic sounding, recordings, even though they have a lot packed in them but it comes across being more stripped down. But the song itself, I know, was one of a couple songs, maybe all, with the evidence of all this, but one of a couple songs I know I think it's the last interview. I'm pretty sure it was the Kevin Gilbert's last interview. One of the last interviews, obviously, he did, that he talked about how he worked at it over and over again to try to perfect it, and then eventually he just kind of gave in and said, I can't make this any better. Let's move on. But I've liked it, but I just, it's kind of in the mid-level. It's not a high track. It's not one you go, it's more of, it fits within the record maybe a little better than it does individually, but it's still a song that people are really taken aback by. Is that the right word? There's a lot of love for it, a lot of appreciation for it. And lyrically, I thought it was one interview, was one of maybe the KLOS interviews with Mark and Brian, or he talked about what it's about, and he mentions this person named Duncan. It's kind of like unrequited love, or like a hope, someone who obviously sees a woman, or maybe more than one woman, but one specific woman I'm thinking of, and admires her from afar, and is hoping to win her over, but it's not going to happen. It turns out she's with someone else. He's waiting for her, and that's why he's having tea by himself. Now, of course, there's a Led Zeppelin song called T for One. I don't know if the phrase T for One is just like a known phrase in sort of literary works, and just maybe the English, where Led Zeppelin got that. Is there like a novel, T for One, I think, didn't originate from Kevin Gilbert, obviously. I don't think it even necessarily originated from Led Zeppelin's song off of the Presence album, but so that's where he got it from. But it's like unrequited love, or he's having tea by himself. And in some ways, I can relate to that because I would go into public and I would just be by myself. I got used to that. A lot of people, a lot of bachelors do. But let's get into the sort of the differences on these songs, the versions. So the standard version, it's a good track, like I mentioned. I love the bridge and guitar solo, and mostly that's the biggest thing. I mean, the lyrics, of course, are painted picture, just like on Joytown, some other tracks on Thud, many other Kevin Gilbert tracks. So, but I'm not going to say a ton more about it. I mean, it's not a short track. It's 5 minutes and 47 seconds. So, I mean, there's the 3 other versions. The instrumental version, I'll just get this out of the way, is pretty much the instrumental track. You could do karaoke to it, of course. I mean, I could try doing that. But there's not a lot. You get to hear the instruments, the guitar solo, in the instrumental version more prominently because it's just more noticeable. And there's also some piano that's not as noticeable on the standard version or these other versions. So, and that's whatever, it's 3 seconds longer. The alt bass mix that comes on alternate, maybe alternate version, is pretty similar to the standard also. Like some of the tracks on here. I mean, it's kind of a hit and miss on this. There's some songs that are very different, some songs that are definitely not. There are a lot that aren't that different. And I would say as a whole, the Thud Alternate, the alt bass mix isn't that different. Maybe the bass is mixed a little higher, but the guitar refrain is a little different. At points he's using those refrains. The vocals aren't doubled in certain spots when he says like. The lyrics, afraid to change his way or whatever, and he brings into the lyric at the end of one or two of the verses and goes into the chorus. The vocals aren't doubled. There's less layers, and he doesn't say the word again. It's not so drawn out. And the guitar solo is a little more up front, although listening to the different versions, it's not that different. I think it's slightly. The drum part is more noticed in the solo bridge. But as a whole, again, this version on the alt bass mix on Thud Alternate, a few seconds longer, but isn't dramatically different from the standard Thud version from 1995. So now we're getting into the more where the real diamonds are, where the real uncovered. So we have the demo number 1. So there are probably other demos that were not released at this point. It's 5:53, so it's a little bit longer, but it starts off with fretless bass. It's kind of like a Jaco Pastorius, or you name your fretless bass parts, which is a different mix, and add something to it. It sounds a little more new agey as a whole. That's one thing I've noticed. But it's more stripped down a little bit, if you could say that, because a lot of these songs are on the song. But the guitar riff's a little different, and you hear more synthesizers. When he sings the line, "Oh my Lord, if beauty has a name, then hers must be the same," he doesn't extend it out. It's more just kind of straight, without extra tracking. And then he sings the line, "It looks like T for one again, in a major key, and it's more like soft. It sounds very much like a adult contemporary song. T for one again versus T for one again, So it's in a major key, and it's like going up versus, he's singing a note that's lower. The standard goes down. And the fretless bass is led. So at points, the vocals aren't doubled again on that part. I was just mentioning, like on the alt bass mix. At the end of the verse, where you hear the T for one again, So then you have the real nitty-gritty, the different lyrics. She takes his hand. This is like an extra verse. She takes his hand in hers. I think it's she. Yeah, she takes his hand in hers. She wants him to sweep her off her feet. Impatiently, I think it's he waits. I wrote down just waits. Must maintain the social grace. Oh yes, she wants a. I think he says cardinal man, but he doesn't understand. Then, okay, so that's great. I like that verse, that extra verse there. Then the bridge verse is my favorite part of this track, and this is one of the best parts on all these extra tracks. I just love this extra part that was not included that most people have never heard, that have only heard Thud. At 3 minutes and 5 seconds. He never had anyone, Kevin just bolts this out. He never had anyone inside your city walls, as love is a woman's trap, only a jealous man would fall. So why are you lying around, yes, hoping that you'd call? So why be so cool? Let your love rule, Duncan, you fool. So yeah, it's so impassioned. I love that. And that kind of illustrates even more about the whole requited love, sort of, unrequited love rather. The hopeless romantic. And he mentions Duncan in it. So yeah, that's the big section of this track, of all of the T for ones. So then there's the sax mix, which is also on this, and for the most part, what it is basically taking where normally the guitar parts and replacing them with sax. My guess is that Kevin's like, let's just see what this would sound like, because it's so, slower ballad and methodical points. We have these guitar textures in here. What would it sound like with a saxophone? And it's like, I think it's probably a tenor. I think it's a tenor. I don't think it's a soprano. Maybe a soprano. It sounds more like a tenor. And it does work. I mean, it is different, but I mean, as a whole, it doesn't differentiate that much from the original with the guitar parts. But I mean, having the saxophone tone, the way the feel and the kind of vibe and mood the sax just brings, makes this different and interesting. At one point, actually, he sings a little harmony with the sax, which I love. It didn't go on very long in the last chorus. It kind of reminds me a little of Careless Whisper. I mean, that's kind of easy. It's like, well, Careless Whisper, the power ballad with the saxophone. Every other song with saxophone, think of Careless Whisper. But, it does have a little bit of a Careless Whisper element, which is great. It's very romantic. And then the outro of this particular version ends with the sax, which is a great way to end a track. It's kind of like the end of Starless, from King Crimson or whatever. That saxophone really makes the ending of that song great. That sort of sticks the landing. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, I think this is a track that definitely adds a lot when you hear the different versions of it. And I would definitely say that my favorite version is the demo one. Now, that kind of makes me wonder how many other demos there were that I've not heard that are in the vaults and the archives that the estate, that Gruno and John Rubin and stuff would go over. John Gilbert, but again, that whole thing he talked about how he recorded these things and overthought them over and over again, and it's just like would be beating a dead horse. But especially with that one verse, that bridge verse is just, it's freaking Kevin at some of his best sort of impassioned vocals. That's I've only listened to it maybe 10 or 15 times. I've heard the original probably 150 or 200 times, so I've kind of shortchanged myself, and it's a track I should go back to. So I mean, if I'm choosing a favorite, it would probably be that. The sax mix I like the original a lot too, but as a whole, you get your money's worth when you get to check out that demo especially. So, and the sax one's great. So anyway, that's it for T for One. What are your thoughts on T for One? I'd love to hear about that. Up next is the 6th track on Thud, the big, sort of the proggiest of the proggiest, highly layered Shadow Self, which is going to be, I kind of sense it's going to be a bit more time-consuming just to get everything down. And there's the standard version, of course. I'll just go over this quickly. Then there's the 20th anniversary this book has what was originally titled Late for Dinner Dark Mix, and then it has mix number 2, and then it has Bill's Board Mix. Then there's 2 versions on Thud Alternate, so it's a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versions. So, but and I think Shadow Self / Late for Dinner is the proggiest track. It's the closest thing to stuff that he'd been doing with Giraffe and with Toyman A to an extent, and actually in some ways some of the stuff on Shamey. It's the most proggy of all the songs on Thud, and a lot of the prog fans lean toward Shadow Self as their go-to, as their favorite track. So it should be fun to take care of take a look at that and go over that stuff. But thank you for watching. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and ring the notification bell, and we'll see you next time.